Full Contact Podcast, buckle up, you heard, like, follow, and share. Like a ming, you heard, we dare. Pulses of the port and why do people leave? Crank up the truth with Beth and Steve.
Welcome back to Lycoming Ya Heard. I'm Steve Marshall.
And I'm Beth Fulmer.
We're diving into, obviously a case that's on a lot of people's minds in Lycoming County. It's the Roger Freed trial.
Yeah, definitely a sensitive one, to be sure. And it seems from the sources you sent me that this goes way beyond just the legal stuff. We're talking about real people's lives here.
Absolutely. And Mustin Hale over at FAFO Media really gets to the heart of it in his article, focusing on the victim's mother's testimony. Sounds like it was intense.
Oh, yeah. I can only imagine being in that courtroom, hearing your son's story, having to face the man who supposedly did all this. It's got to be a whirlwind of emotions.
The article even says that the courtroom went silent when she spoke. And she didn't hold back. Called Freed a piece of shit right there.
Wow. I mean, that speaks volumes, Not just for what her son went through, but as a parent, you trust the school to keep your kids safe, and then something like this happens. It's devastating.
And just tragic all around. The article mentions the victim's younger brother passed away from a brain tumor. So on top of everything else.
Oh my gosh. So they're dealing with all this grief on multiple levels. And Hale uses this phrase, generational impacts, to talk about how this could affect the family for years to come.
What does that mean exactly? Generational impacts.
Well, it's this idea that trauma, especially within a family, it doesn't just disappear. It can impact relationships, mental health, even how future generations deal with their own problems.
This heavy stuff. This family's going through so much, and it really makes you think about all the support that's needed, not just for victims, but their families too.
No doubt. This kind of thing impacts a whole community. It's vital to have the resources in place to help people navigate all the emotional and legal fallout from something like this.
And this case has a lot of people in Lycoming County talking. What really got to me in Hale's article is how much this trial is bringing up all these really tough emotions. And people are asking, how could this even happen?
Yeah, it's bound to happen when you have accusations like this against someone in a position of power. That violation of trust can really do damage, not just to the people involved, but to the whole community.
Right. And the article talks about how Freed was someone people respected. He was the principal. Parents trusted him with their kids.
Exactly. That's what makes it so hard to wrap your head around. It forces people to confront this really ugly truth about someone they thought they knew and the systems they thought they could depend on. It's like the rug's been pulled out from under them.
The article also brings up that trip Freed took with the victim to Duquesne University, the overnight one. The victim's mother was very clear that she never okayed that. And it sounds like there are questions about whether her son even applied to or was even considered by that school. That's
a big deal. It raises a lot of questions about what Freed was thinking and if this was part of some grooming thing, taking a student on an overnight trip without the parents knowing, especially when the story about why they went doesn't add up. That's a huge red flag.
It's really unsettling to think about the ways he might have been manipulating things. And the article doesn't shy away from that. It really digs into that power dynamic between them and how vulnerable young people are in those situations.
It's so important to understand those dynamics, especially in cases like this with students and teachers. There's this built-in power imbalance that makes it so tough for a kid to speak up or even realize that lines are being crossed.
And we have to remember, this is Freed's second trial. The first one ended in a mistrial, which just makes everything more complicated.
Mistrials can happen for all sorts of reasons, but they don't mean someone's innocent. And it can be incredibly frustrating for everybody, especially for the victim and their family who have to go through all this pain all over again.
And for the community, too. It just drags out all that uncertainty and anxiety, like a wound that keeps getting ripped open.
That's a good way to put it. These cases really take a toll on everyone, even those who aren't directly involved. They make us face these tough questions about our community and the systems we have to protect the people who are most at risk.
Definitely. And this trial is shining a light on a lot of those issues. It'll be interesting to see how things play out in the community as the case goes on. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, maybe we should take another look at some of the specifics from the article. There's a lot there that really helps us understand what happened.
I agree. Breaking down those details can give us a much clearer picture of the case and what it could mean for Lycoming County.
Yeah, one thing that really stuck with me was how the victim said it all started. He talked about Freed picking him up from practice and how they'd have these talks about same-sex relationships. It just feels like textbook grooming behavior.
Yeah.
Testing the waters, building that trust.
It does, doesn't it? And grooming's so sneaky, it's hard to catch when it's happening. And these guys, they use their position to get close to kids to manipulate them.
The article also goes into the defense's strategy, and they're basically trying to make the victim look bad, pointing out inconsistencies in his story, bringing up old legal issues even though they're not connected to this case.
Unfortunately, that's pretty typical. They want to make the jury doubt everything, even if they can't actually prove anything. It's a reminder that the legal system isn't always about the truth. It's about who can tell the best story.
It's so messed up. And when you don't have much physical evidence, it's really just one person's word against another's.
Right. And that's when they try to paint the victim as someone you can't trust or someone who's just out to get something. Anything to shift the focus away from the accused.
Hale even talks about this weird moment when the defense lawyer was questioning the victim. He kept going on about a phone call the victim made from prison. Like there was some kind of deal with the DA in exchange for testimony against Freed.
That's interesting. It seems random, but maybe he's trying to plant a seed of doubt, Even if there's no proof of a deal, just bringing it up could make people wonder.
It just shows how these trials are like these carefully staged things. Each side's trying to control the story and how the jury sees everything.
You got it. And it's important for people to understand that, to look at the information with a critical eye. The legal system, it doesn't always give us easy answers.
Man, there's a lot to think about. This whole thing's been weighing heavy on Lycoming County, and it's a story that's really hitting home for a lot of people. Whatever happens, it's going to have a big impact on the community.
It really underscores how these cases, they're not just isolated incidents. They're about power and who we hold accountable and trust. It makes us confront these uncomfortable truths about our institutions and the systems that are supposed to keep us safe.
Well, as this all moves forward, it's important for people in Lycoming County to stay informed, keep talking about it, and support those who've been affected by this whole thing.
And in the end, the community needs to come together to heal, to figure out how to move forward in a way that puts students first and makes sure schools are safe for everybody.
That's a tough challenge, but so important. Thanks for breaking this down with me. It's been a really insightful deep dive. And to everyone listening, please stay informed as this case unfolds.
The shore has no snooky, that's the word. And Missy Lane's sugar cookies slap, you heard. Like, follow, and share. Lycoming, you heard, we dare. Pulses up the port and why do people leave? Crank up the truth with Beth and Steve.